Greetings, people of the internet. My name is Josh Freak, and welcome to the Infinity Train. Or, as some of us passengers like to call it, the therapy train. Because you know, it's just like therapy, but with extra trauma. One thing is sure, getting on this train, it really changes you. But what makes this train the perfect place for passengers to change? I think there are 3 ways that the story is written that give us a few hints as to why. Thankfully, I was able to get onto the train to prove my point. Yeah, that's probably not a good thing now that I think of it. Anyway, let's explore the character writing of Infinity Train. The first question we should ask is, what's the purpose of the train? And I think we have somebody here that can help us with that.
The train is filled with all sorts of things that can help you learn about yourself and grow as a person.
Thanks, 1-1. So as far as we know, the train exists to help humans change and confront their flaws. The train usually picks up people who are dealing with issues that are putting themselves or others in danger, and it then puts them in situations where they need to grow emotionally, which, you know, works most of the times if you survive the experience, which isn't always the case. Infinity Train is also a character-driven show. It's all about people going on the hero's journey and how that adventure transforms them. And the train itself is pretty much one of the best narrative tools for character growth. The number on the passenger's hand is also a constant and physical reminder of their purpose in the story. For the story to reach its conclusion, there has to be change, for better or for worse. Another way the story brings our protagonists to change is to confront them with other passengers who have similar desires and flaws as them. In book 1, Tulip is dealing with her parents' divorce. It's a season of change for her, the kind of change she has no control over. She has to learn that change is a part of life, and that learning to accept it is part of the journey.
Things were fine, but then you decided to change everything! That's definitely what happened. But knowing it sure doesn't feel any better.
Tulip later comes face to face with the fake conductor, Amelia. Amelia is grieving the loss of her husband Ulrich. She has no control over it, but she's unable to accept it. So, she tries by all her might to change something that is irreversible. She takes over the train and tries to recreate a world where she never lost Ulrich. Both characters' desire is pretty much the same. They want to avoid change and go back to the way things were before. Amelia acts as a mirror for Tulip. She represents what Tulip might become if she doesn't change.
I don't know what it's like to lose someone you love. But I do know that neither of us can go back to the way things were. We have to adapt to the changes in our lives. It's the only way things can get better.
And speaking of mirrors, MT and Jesse also share the same problem in their search for identity. MT was Tulip's reflection. But in book 2, that's the last thing she wants to be. She wants to be her own person and doesn't care or doesn't seem to care about what other people think of her. She puts her wants and her needs before anybody else's. On the other hand, Jesse's problem is that he's a people pleaser. He values what people think of him, and he wants everyone around him to like him, so he ends up putting what people want in front of his own desires. Jesse reflects the people around him, and MT, who is technically already someone's reflection, wants to be her own person. As you keep watching the show, you start realizing that these dual opposing protagonists keep showing up. With Grace and Simon, or Ryan and Mingy, you find characters who are dealing with similar issues, but coming at them from 2 different angles. These characters are both sides of the same coin, and being confronted to each other leads them to grow. The final way Infinity Train creates compelling characters is by not overextending their stories. By using the anthology format, they let the show explore new problems and new characters without repeating old stories or adding flaws to their previous passengers.
On a show or in a movie franchise, new stories should continue their protagonist's journey and find new problems for them to face. In many instances where further stories were not originally part of the plan, this can make it hard for characters to have satisfying endings, especially when it seems that they have already reached the end of their character arc. This may lead to creators giving out-of-character flaws or unrelated issues to their heroes to keep them fresh and interesting, which usually has varying degrees of success. By following a different character each book, it gives Infinity Train the liberty to explore various facets and issues that different people from different walks of life can experience. That's why we can have a whole season addressing the trauma of uncontrollable change with Tulip and Amelia, and having the next season being about finding your identity with Jesse and Lake. Tulip and Lake have two very different ways of life, and these different problems they're facing are relevant through their own stories. If the show would have decided to follow Tulip, the ways these issues are handled would not have been as satisfying as they are. This also lets the audience connect with a variety of main characters that share similarities with themselves and the situations they are living.
If you don't relate to Tulip's story, you might relate a little bit more to Jesse, Grace, or even Mingy, but hopefully not Simon. The show has the opportunity to give value to each of its characters and embrace their stories from beginning till end, leaving us with a satisfying conclusion for the passengers we've grown to love. Throughout the show, we accompany numerous characters on their road towards emotional maturity. We follow them as they face obstacles, overcome their inner turmoils, and go through the process of falling and getting back up again. The writers crafted an intricate world in which their characters could grow naturally, if naturally can be used in this context. Infinity Train is an incredible show because it reminds us that even though growth isn't always linear, if we face our pain, our past, and our mistakes, we're taking a step in the right direction. We are not passengers of the train, but we are passengers of life. And hopefully, we can leave this place better than when we started.